Good morning. Coming live from Senate District 2, Caucus. This is Bob Hall's Senate District, and as you see in the, you are seeing the breakfast that Senate District 2 delegates get to enjoy. This is something that no other Senate district really gets to enjoy because they don't have senators who are at the convention like Senator Hall is, and he has been he's already I talked to John, his field director, that basically said that he's been up since 6 this morning, already doing events and working with praying with one of the caucuses or one of the events. And he has just come in now, and so he'll be coming over in a few minutes, hopefully. But this is what the caucus looks like. And so what happens this morning is and here comes Senator Hall now. Senator.
Good morning, Bob.
How are you? Here, I'll shake your hand.
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
So you've already been up this morning since about. Yeah. This is not unusual for you, though.
No. I just came from the grassroots breakfast over in the hotel put on by the Dunn family.
Okay.
You know, the folks that truly support the grassroots over there. Great turnout for it. And they're about to have a good panel with our new House members over there that are going to have a panel for the folks, talk about what to expect in the upcoming session over there, which is going to be interesting because a couple of them have been told that we really don't like what you guys are doing, and we're going to expel you from the Republican caucus in the House.
What do you mean? Say that again. Who are we talking about?
The new House members that are newly elected that have signed the contract with Texas. Okay, the incumbents coming back don't cotton to that too well. And so they had told them, we don't like what you're doing, so we're going to kick you out of the Republican caucus.
Oh. Can they do that?
I assume they can, and my response is like, so what?
I mean, they would have to kick Brian Harrison out as well, I guess.
I think yes. I think all of those who endorsed against an incumbent supported a challenger in it. They said we just don't do that in the House. So we'll see what happens out of that. There's just something new. Always something new and interesting happening, particularly when you stand up for principles.
I mean, the cojones on these people to actually think that they have a right to exclude duly elected Republicans.
No, what you see is a mindset of a number of people who feel like that once they're elected, they can separate themselves from the people, that they have now entered into a divine role that they can do as their masters tell them to do, which is not the people that elected them.
You know, it's funny, I was talking with Rockwall Treasurer David Peake yesterday. We were talking specifically about you, and what's unique about Senator Hall is you're not just a conservative, but you are one of the only senators that we see at these conventions. Not only that, you were here this week for testimony and the platforms, as you are every 2 years. And most importantly, you take care of your delegates. And the SD2, this is the only Senate district in Texas whose delegates are treated to a breakfast. Now, you don't get what you're paid. I mean, this could probably you're probably spending everything you get paid on just on this breakfast alone. I mean, this is a true sacrifice. And why do you do this? Why do you think? I mean, because no one else is doing it. Why are you?
The only explanation I have is I truly feel God has led me to do this. He blessed me all of my life and took care of me. He's blessed me with good health, energy, and interest, and given me a vision of what He wants me to do. And I just feel like that's what I need to do. As I've told people, I'm a social conservative with Judeo-Christian values, and I serve my Lord Jesus Christ first, and the people of Texas second, and I'm doing what I think He put me here to do. He puts the ideas in my head. I don't dream this stuff up. I'm talking about doing stuff I never dreamed of that we had a problem with, and so He's put the ideas, and He's brought me the people to support it, work on it, and so, like I told Him when I first ran for office, it's in Your hands, God. You tell me what You want me to do. And so I don't have any problem in doing it. And I'll do this as long as I keep getting the message that this is what he wants me to do.
So there's been a lot of talk about the fact that Dade Phelan is very likely. I'm just going to predict that he loses his race. That's the Speaker of the House and other individuals who have basically abandoned the grassroots, that basically snubbed their nose at the grassroots. I'm speaking namely of Justin Holland, who basically sent out a tweet or something like that, just basically saying the grassroots doesn't really matter. I'm summarizing. Do you think that you're seeing a turn in Texas with the grassroots having enough of these politicians going in and, unlike you, not really caring what the grassroots and what the people think?
Oh, I think so. I think what we're seeing in this election with the challengers, which when they started out, the grassroots side was saying, if we could just get 10 of us together in the House, we think we could get a foothold to make a difference. Well, it looks like it may be closer to 25 or 30 now rather than 10 that are pretty much aligned along the side of let's get back to what the people want and what they want, what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for. We are supposed to be the conservative party, not the woke party. We're not supposed to be going for the stuff that the Democrats like, and we really shouldn't care what they like in there. If they want their stuff done, they need to start winning elections in there. The people that get elected are being elected because the people agree with the philosophy they have. I ran on being a constitutional conservative with Judeo-Christian values. That's the way I vote. That's the way I expect others to vote. And if our district should happen to start turning blue and moving to the left, they will have another senator, because I will not change my vote just to get reelected. I am not here to get reelected. I'm here to do what I feel I'm being led to do, to keep us on a path where we never forget that God, our Creator, is responsible for this country. And we were founded on Judeo-Christian values by just this group of some 50 old white men, average age 44, average, and some as young as 20 and younger, that came to this brilliant idea that we blend the best of previous republics with Judeo-Christian values and created the two second and third greatest documents the world has ever seen, right behind the Bible.
Yeah. Next to the Bible.
Yeah, the Bible is first,
right, absolutely.
And Declaration of Independence, yes, and the Constitution. Someday, sit down and just, in a quiet room, and read the Declaration of Independence, a line at a time, and feel the emotion that was in them as they wrote this document. And when they end up saying, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, there's not much more to give up. Think about how much they believed in what they were doing for the first time in the history of the world, taking a nation and saying, we people who kind of led this revolt, we're not going to rule over you. We're going to let you. This is we the people. That was not a cute statement. That was a sincere intent. The people are going to make that decision. The people are going to decide. And it's so disappointing that we see that we got 25 to 30% of the people showing up at election time to make that decision. I mean, our right to vote is one of the most precious rights we have. And for those that don't like their government or what the government is doing, they only need to look in the mirror, because they either didn't do anything or they didn't do enough. Because we have, as a grassroots, you talk about me, I am part of the grassroots. I just happen to occupy this position that a decision was made by God in the winter. Ours in running for office, make ready the horse for the battle. The outcome is His. And so it's there. So I'm just here serving at His will and the vote of the people. And when that changes, I will be right back out here in the grassroots where I am. So I feel, it's my role to come here and provide a little insight of what's going to happen in the legislature with what the grassroots are talking about, wanting to have done, so that they get it channeled to give us the best chance to get it through the legislation. You know, one of the things that we Republicans have got to learn is we got to start paying attention to what the Democrats do, because they've been very successful. Okay, let's look why they're successful. I'll give you one example is how they go about getting things done. If you were to bring two elephants into this room, or this room with Republicans, brought them an elephant, and a room across the hallway full of Democrats and brought them an elephant, and tell them, and we were told both to eat that elephant. Well, the Democrats would very quickly carve that elephant up into little bites and eat it, one bite at a time, and before you knew it, they'd have eaten the whole elephant, while the Republicans would be running around arguing over how to swallow that elephant in one big bite. We can't figure out that you just don't get everything at one time. And so that's what we have to be, and we have to be careful with legislation of a particular piece of it that we just have to have that. Well, maybe we can add that later. Let's get our nose under the tent. Let's get the basics. And once you get the basics, adding to it is much easier than trying to get the whole thing in there at one time.
Okay, so that great point. And so did you go into the Senate thinking about having the whole elephant mentality, or is that something that you've kind of figured out along the way?
Oh, I had no clue. I showed up, I came down here, I had no clue what it was like to be in the legislature, or how it works, or what the mechanisms were for things like that. Matter of fact, somebody once asked me after my first session down there, what was it like, what kind of questions you asked, something like that. I said, well, I got one question I ask all the time. What the hell just happened? Because it's a learning process that everybody just assumes you know what's going on. So I'd look around, what just happened?
That is so refreshing.
Yeah, and so from that, I learned that you have to do a little planning, you have to do a little talking, and not everybody understands everything the way you see it, and so you have to talk to them and get them to. And the neat thing about doing it that way is, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That wasn't a mistake. He gave those 2 ears and 1 mouth so we will listen twice as much as we talk, because he wants us to learn. And you don't learn anything when you got your mouth running, but you do when you're listening to what people have to say from a different viewpoint. And I say viewpoint, I didn't say a disagreement, but a disagreement over something. No. We're talking from a viewpoint that's based on our life's experiences. And sometimes we don't have those experiences, but you might have those experiences. And when you talk about it, you say, well, wait a minute, maybe that's an unintended consequence that we need to consider in doing this. So I've always encouraged people that have a different viewpoint to come talk to me about it so I can learn from what you're having to say, or I can help you understand that your viewpoint gives you a misunderstanding of what's happening. And I find that with some legislation, that is the case most of the time when someone will call saying they don't like this, whatever this is. And I'll listen to what it is they don't like, and I'm basing my responses, I can understand why you wouldn't like it based on what you just said. Let me tell you, you didn't get all the parts. Let me tell you the rest of it and the reason for it, and they'll listen and they'll say, oh, well, I hadn't thought about that. 90% of the time, that's how our conversations go, that people will be upset over something because they don't understand it completely. They've been led to believe something different about it by a lobby group that was trying to push something. I'll give you just a real quick example. Yeah. A couple of sessions back, there was a bill that came through on education. And in it, as a part of the change, they took out a table in law that had teacher pay. And it had teacher pay entry level, a minimum salary, I think it was $29,000. And after 5 years, it went up to another figure. In 10 years, it went up to another figure. And for some reason, they took out everything except the basic pay, as minimum basic pay entry. Well, there were teacher lobby groups that told all the teachers that the state had dictated a $29,000 pay for all teachers, and which was so far from the truth it was unreal. And so got a lot of very angry teachers that we were reducing their pay to $29,000 a year, which not the case at all. And so after discussion, I was very glad that they would call, and I am always glad when people do a call like that, because I was able to relieve their angst by saying, no, that's not the case, and then explained it to them. And that happens most of the time with people.
You know, you haven't changed, you haven't moderated your view. From my point of view, you're still a staunch conservative. But sometimes when as a conservative, I think of compromise as a really bad word. I don't like the word at all, and I don't like compromising because I stand on the conviction of my beliefs. Have you found yourself having to? I mean, I would love to understand how. When do you decide? Yeah, I need to compromise, and when do you decide? No, I've got to stick to my guns.
Well, you have to have a mental line in the sand, just like Travis drew. Said, we're not crossing this line. Now, how far we get to the right of the line will depend on the fight, but the compromise can come back from that to the line, but no crossing the line into the left side, just to get something passed. I mean, we'll be facing some bills coming up here that are conservative bills, can have some very non-conservative things attached to it. I'll give you an example. Education. Yes. Everybody wants to know we're going to have school choice. Right. Okay, that sounds good. It can have a great implementation, or it can have a disastrous implementation. And so how it's defined, to what extent we go with that, will determine whether I support the bill or not. In there, it's the title. Think about this: the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. It's anything but affordable. Exactly. It's anything but good health care, but that's the title of it. And so how could you possibly oppose something, the Affordable Care Act? Well, look at the bill. Look at what's in it. So you can't make that decision based on just the title. And so it's going to be the same way with school choice. Oh, you voted for school choice. Oh, blah, blah, or you voted against it. Blah, blah, blah. Well, no, it wasn't the title of the bill. It was the way we were going to implement it. So.
Finally, I know you need to get to some of your delegates, but the one thing is you talked about elections. Election integrity, it's one of your hot-button issues in addition to the power grid. I like your proposal, and in fact, I testified before elections this week, and I actually talked about your position having one, not eliminate early voting, just having one long vote where there is nothing broken into it. Can you explain that a little bit more, and how likely do you think we are to get that passed?
I think we're closer than we ever have been to making the basic changes to how we go through an election than we ever have been, as if people have become aware. See, people have just vote out of habit and not understanding what happens after they leave the polling place. They're not understanding the fact that there is no way to track their the votes, to keep the votes intact, and the things that stand in the way, the things the legislature has done over the years that have made changes to make voting more convenient. But each time we did that, we sacrificed security. We did that with early voting with a gap between it and Election Day. We get 55% of the vote, in which it now sits somewhere for 3 days, and who knows what happens to those votes. So if we get rid of that gap, like 21 other states do, have a continuous in-voting period, it allows us to run a zero tape just before the polls open at the precinct, run a result tapes as soon as the polls close, and you removed one of the three things that are needed for mistakes or fraud, and that is time, opportunity, and means. And so you take away the time. It doesn't matter what the opportunity is. You don't have no opportunity without time. And it doesn't matter what means you have for the mistake being made or for fraud. It can't happen. Run that results tape, post it on the website, and the world knows the votes within an hour of the polls closing on Election Day of everything except for the provisional ballots and the mail-in ballots. And we, in countywide voting, which we now have learned in a countywide vote through Freedom of Information requests, you can determine how individuals voted. Not if they voted, but exactly how they voted. Now, there will be, for those that just want to protect countywide voting, who thinks it's the greatest thing ever, there will be an attempt to say, well, let's just shut it down and make that secret. Not let the public see that information. Guys, that is the absolute worst answer we can have. We don't fix government-created problems by putting a robe of secrecy around it and hiding it from the public, because there will be people who will find a back door to get that information who really should not have it. So we have to end countywide voting, precinct voting only, no gap between early election day, hand-marked paper ballots on secure paper, and every time the vote moves from the precinct to the county to the state level, there's a verification that what was sent was actually received, and what was received was what was actually sent each step of the way. And then we will remove the shroud of secrecy around it, and we will know that we can have confidence in our elections.
So one of the platform planks that I introduced, and that is going on the platform, is that no counting of any ballots can happen until after the polls close on Election Day, because in Rockwall, I did this on my show, and I sat and I watched, starting at 7 o'clock when the polls closed. I kept hitting refresh. 2 minutes after the polls closed, the early voting was posted. That meant that the election judge, they knew what the tallies were. They knew they had access to it, and so this would solve. Your proposal would solve that altogether. So I'm glad that to hear that we're getting closer to it. And I'm not a fan of early voting, frankly. To be honest, I think we should just have one day. But everybody, that would be impossible, I think, at this point to get out of.
That's a point I am not. That's a point I will not fall on my sword over. Okay. Whether it's a single day or 10 days, as long as it's a continuous period. Zero tapes and tally tapes, I'm okay with a period. It is one of those things that, can I get it? Could I get? I don't want to say we're going to Election Day as a basic part of the bill, because there is great opposition to that could kill the whole bill. It's not worth it. No, it's not. Because very well could come back in a session or two when people say, why in the world have you got 10 days, 9 days out there? Why don't we shrink that back to 6? Yeah. Sure, that would be easy to do. Or make it longer. Yeah. What do we find works? Yeah. Let's get the process that gives us insight that we can follow that vote from the time it is put on a piece of paper by the individual. Remember, what I'm talking about is making the voter a part of history for the voting, because they make the mark on the paper themselves. Their ballot that they mark with their own hand is their mark. And that becomes the basis for any future discussions about what was the real vote. And then we can track it from then on. And I would say, why don't you come to our 1 o'clock? I'm going to do the presentation today, and let the folks watch the entire presentation on what I'm talking about doing.
You'll let me film it?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that.
1 o'clock. All right, so at 1 o'clock, be ready to go live, because we will hear the whole presentation. Senator, thank you so much. It's great to see you. Yes, sir, and thanks for the breakfast. We're grateful for it. So, what's that?
God bless Texas.
God bless Texas. God bless Bob Hall. This is the greatest Senate district in Texas because of Senator Hall, frankly. And I'll just do a little bit of a swing around so you can kind of see how many people are here. This is a great showing of delegates who have come at their own expense to be here, and this is such a neat experience. If you've never been a delegate to, you can do that, and that next election cycle, I'll kind of walk you through the process of doing it. But do get involved. Do be a part of the solution here in Texas. So Senate District 2, we are about to come up and do our meetings. So I'm going to close with that, and I want to thank Senator Hall, obviously, for his time being with us today, and I look forward to seeing